With the store module registered here in app module and it being connected to our shopping list reducer, as I said in the last lecture, finally NGRX gets going. Time to use it. And I want to use it in my shopping list component. In the shopping list component, thus far we're injecting the shopping list service and the logging service. Now the logging service doesn't really matter. We can leave it here. We could remove it. It's not involved with our app state management. So I will leave it here, but I will inject something new. And that will be our application store. If you remember the earlier slides of this module, I mentioned that we're not using Redux but NGRX because it gives us some extra features and deeper integration into Angular. And for example, it gives us an injectable store that makes it easy for us to access our application state, which is stored in that store after all. Now the type here, which is important for the injection, is store. And store needs to be imported from @ngrx_store. So this import needs to be added in the shopping list component. And therefore, we now have the store, but we still have an error here because store turns out to be a generic type. You need to describe how your application store looks like. And now that is the structure you set up in the app module. Here, it's this action reducer map which you set up here. This object where you have a key of your choice and then the reducer. This is in the end the structure of your store. Of course, in your application, you might, and in this module you will, have at some point a store that is made up of many different pieces. Later, for example, we'll have a shopping list area and a recipes area, and that's all merged together into one store. And therefore, our type is in the end a description of the different parts we have in the store. So back in the shopping list component, here the type would be a JavaScript object where we have a shopping list key. And now this has to be the name you chose here on the left as a key. And the type of the data stored in that shopping list area is now not your reducer function, but what this reducer function yields. And what does our shopping list reducer yield in the end? Well, a state of this type. It yields a state of a type object with an ingredients key, where this ingredients key holds an array of ingredients. That's the state data that this part of our global store holds. And therefore, back in the shopping list component, the value of the shopping list part of our application store is an object which will have an ingredients key. Again, this now has to be typed correctly. If it's ingredients in the shopping list reducer, which it is here, it has to be ingredients here as well. And the value, so the type of the values stored in this ingredients key is ingredient array, so an array of ingredients. So this is the final type of our store data. It's an object with a shopping list area, and in the shopping list area, our data will be stored in an object which has an ingredients key, which is holding a list of ingredients. Now with that store injected, we can use it. And thus far, we use our shopping list service to get our ingredients and to react to changes in our ingredients. Well, now I want to use my store here and get access to the ingredients stored in that store. And that will then, as it turns out, handle both these cases. Now on the store, which is this injected store service provided by NGRX, you have a select method. And that helps you select a slice of your state. Now that slice is identified as a string, and here I automatically get TypeScript support. It's shopping list. Now how did TypeScript know this? Well, because here we tell TypeScript that the type of data stored in our store is an object with a shopping list key. So here I'm selecting that shopping list part of my global store. Again, right now, the shopping list part is the only thing I have in this store, but as this will change throughout the app, you of course need to tell NGRX into which part of the store you are interested in at this point. So here I select my shopping list, and this turns out to give us an observable. Now I actually want to store this observable in this ingredients, so I'll set this ingredients equal to this. But of course, TypeScript doesn't like this because ingredients is a property which is of type ingredient array. We need to change this. It should instead be an observable. And for that, you should import observable from RxJS, so make sure to add this import. And now this is a generic type, which will in the end yield an object with an ingredients array, which will then hold an array of ingredients. Now, why do I know that we get data in this format? Because that is the data format of our store. In the shopping list part, which we are selecting here, we get an object with ingredients, which holds an array of ingredients. So this inner part, which is part of the shopping list stop part, which we select here, that is what we get on this observable. Now we can get rid, of these two parts here. We get rid of that. We can also get rid of that subscription, which we clear here. We don't need to manage the NGRX subscription here. We don't need to unsubscribe from this selection here. But now NGRX and Angular do that for us. Now ingredients is an observable and not an array of ingredients anymore. And that of course will break our template, because if we have a look at the shopping list component, we actually do a loop for all the ingredients, and that of course only works with an array and not with an observable. But Angular has us covered there. You might remember the async pipe from the pipes section. I can wrap ingredients with parentheses, and ingredients again is an observable, and add the async pipe like this. What this will do is that Angular will subscribe to ingredients for us, and therefore it will manage that subscription for us, and we don't need to do that on our own. And we'll resolve that, and in the end, therefore, we can access ingredients on that value that Angular will ultimately give us once it has resolved this and once it got a value from RxJS, from that observable. And then ingredients again is an array for which we can loop. So the async pipe provided by Angular is doing the magic here. It subscribes to that observable that we get here, that we store in ingredients. It subscribes to that observable and allows us to then access the ingredients, so the array of ingredients, once that observable has been resolved. And therefore, this code should indeed work correctly. If we now finally go back to our application, we log in real quick, and I go to the shopping list here, I get an error. Now we get this error not because our setup is wrong, but because one tiny piece is missing, and that's in the shopping list reducer. Now I did mention that at the first time when this application starts up and NGRX loads our reducer here, thanks to the store module, it would initialize our state with the initial state. Well, it does so, but not magically. To use that initial state and return it unchanged, we need to add a default case to our switch statement to handle any cases we're not explicitly handling. And we're only handling one explicit case here. And that's not the action NGRX will dispatch automatically when it starts. It kind of dispatches an initialization action, and we need to handle this, and we can handle it here with the default case. And there I simply want to return the unchanged state, and that will now be the initial state. This is how this will now work. And now if we come back, we indeed see our ingredients here. Now that was quite a lot of work for seeing some ingredients here, but now we got this general setup going. The last missing piece is now to dispatch an action, and thereafter we got the whole NGRX thing set up, and we can dive deeper. So let's focus on dispatching actions next.